Tony, you belong to an institution that is established by the STNI Act. It's one of the key institutions, Kenya. And you have a mandate actually to promote innovation in Kenya. So in 3 minutes, could you tell us, Riri, how you engage yourself in supporting innovation in public service?
Joined in as the first CEO to get the institutions up and running. Over the last 1 year, we've concentrated in getting the new board, staff, and so on and so forth, and designing programs and building partnerships. The mandate of the agency is to develop and manage the national innovation system that will catalyze taking ideas to market. Now, in the context of the public sector, which I think is an amazing opportunity to participate in, and how we look at it, first of all, innovation, we have a simple definition of innovation. It's change that is going to add value, all right? Change that adds value. What that means, it is, first of all, it is not equal to technology. So we're not saying that innovation is technology. Technology enables innovation or helps you to accelerate the innovation. That's one dimension. Second is that it requires skills to build innovations that will truly impact people. And skills here involve things like user-centered design. Because we say technology is not the innovation, so we're not asking people to expect to immerse themselves and truly understand technology. But I think the question is, what is the problem we are solving? And in many forums, as we engage, we try to educate people that fall in love with the problem, not the solution or the technology. Once we immerse ourselves and truly understand the problems that we face, the society faces, then we increase our likelihood of building well thought out solutions for society. So skills. So one thing that Kenya is trying to do is to design programs that ensure we build capacity in people to be able to innovate effectively for the challenges that they face. Second is a skill around user-centeredness. Many a times we create solutions that we think can be useful to society. But who is the measure of success? It is the consumer. So the consumer is the one who should be telling you whether we are succeeding or not, and you have indicators of how you can measure that, all right? The other dimension is how we design the solutions to these challenges that we've truly identified. The design has to be user-centered, it has to be consumer-based, and so on, and inclusive. In other words, to what extent was I involved in the design of the solution that I have rolled out in the public sector? To what extent as a user was I involved? Did you realize that sometimes people don't use solutions that I've created because of the color scheme, all right? Or because of the positioning, all right? Because probably they were not involved in that process. So the involvement of the user, and that's why skills like user-centered design or design thinking are so critical in the way we build solutions. And multidisciplinarity. Many a times we think it is the tech team in my department that is going to create the solution. No, it's multidisciplinary because we have to think through the anthropological realities of people in terms of how they will even consume those innovations. Now, the other dimension is how we deploy solutions in order for them to be effectively utilized. And the last bit is around the measuring of the effect and the impact of the solutions that we create. Mechanisms that we have to gather feedback. And that's where the research dimensions also starts to come in. How well are we engaged with the consumer in order to capture the feedback? Otherwise, there are many other dimensions we can bring in, but that already gives a sense of how we visualize innovation in a broad sense, that it is change that adds value. There has to be a shift from the way it was before to the way it will be, and in the course of that shift, there has to be new value created. And the measure of value is not the person who develops the innovation, it is the person who consumes the innovation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Mwansa. We'll now start from there to ask Ms. Wasike, what exactly does the National Youth Council do to facilitate and to promote that space for the youth?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ross, and thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm representing the CEO National Youth Council today, Mr. Roy Sasaka-Tenel, who unfortunately could not be with us. He's away on assignment. I'll pick up the conversation, the place for youth in innovation, and how National Youth Council is creating this space for them. First of all, I'll just pick from the speech that was delivered by Professor. I was counting the number of times he's talking about youth. And he spoke several times and spoke about the youth are supposed to be here, the youth are supposed to be here, the youth are supposed to be here. So the conversation that we consistently have is the youth are supposed to be here. The big question for us is, where are the youth when we consistently say they are supposed to be here? One of the things that we have seen, and our key topic is inclusive and equitable services, is that there is a consistent feeling of the fact that this inclusion has actually left the very people that we are supposed to focus on. And these are the young people, these are the youth. Why do we say that? As Dr. Mwansa has said, user-centric. Are the solutions we are developing really the solutions to these young people, or the solution to this particular kind of society? And that is where the National Youth Council now comes in. What we do as National Youth Council is actually to try and really push for platforms that really now bring that voice of the youth, to act as a bridge, to bring that voice and opinions of youth to the table, to show this is how we want to be addressed. This is how we want to engage. When we look at this room, I would bet you that the percentage of youth is very minimal. And that describes the participation of young people in these processes. Is this the only way that we can engage them? Or is there a better way to engage them, for them to see that really we can meet with them at their point of need? So such questions and such things are the things that we try and determine as we go forward. On inclusion, and I'll bring in what we are doing. And this also falls under innovation and also policy development. As we have seen 10 years post-devolution, the youth have been left behind because there are no policies for the youth within the counties. That means the very basic aspect of their inclusion is not there. And therefore, even that participation, and as we know in government, without legislative inclusion, then you're outside the plan, you're outside that engagement. So the youth are more often outside that engagement, because legislatively, that inclusion, the affirmative action that is in the Constitution, being distilled down into the policies, into the planning, is really lacking. And therefore, when young people come to a table, the planning has already been done. Even in innovation, even in Kenya, when we go to the table, the direct line to the youth to really articulate or participate is not there, because they were not involved when he was doing the planning. And therefore, they're consistently left out. And this is why we have set out to develop all 47 county youth policies. And again, through an innovative process, through leveraging on technology, through carrying consultation and validation of that policy through online mechanism. Because if we go through the traditional way, it costs almost 5 million to develop one single policy. And when we go to a partner to develop that youth policy for all the 47 county policies, we will fail at the doorstep. So we are saying we can leverage on technology and really drive that inclusion directly now from a legislative perspective, and then now we can be able to now start feeling that inclusion by the youth. And this process is being done by the youth themselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Wasike. You brought in the aspect of technology, and one of the things that COVID has taught us is that continuity, business continuity, we need to think about digital technology. Professor Owaya, could you give us a perspective of how we are moving on as far as the digital technology in Kenya is concerned, and how we can bring equitable services by addressing the gap that exists out? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daktari. First, just allow me to mention Madam Wasike has really spelled it out. And from what I capture, one is you need a roadmap. Nothing gets done until you have a roadmap of what you want to do. Otherwise, it will be done in a haphazard way. Number two, also, the age where I am in life, you occupy your space. It's very rarely that people will invite you. You occupy your space, you make sure they need you. Number three, the platform which will make you outdo the older ages like us is science, technology, innovation. This is where we don't excel, our age doesn't excel. So if we excel, we will give you space. And I saw it when I was briefly at the board of Kenya Universities and Central Placement Board. The system, the program that is used to place students was being done by a youngster. And that youngster was so famous that the CEO would come with him in the board meeting. All the other directors were not in the board meeting except that youngster, because only he knew. And that was the lifeline of COOPs. That's how the digital things that are happening now are so crucial. You've seen it even in, as I was talking about security, the security sector, which has gone very digital. In those countries like UK, the US, you will see it is youngsters who are now heading key famous directorates of security, because they've done the all-stars there. So this is your platform. Then I also want to add very quickly that we are indeed making a lot of effort to involve the youth. If you just Google NACOST website, you will see the photo of Madam Nora Magero, who just won an award the other day. I think you need to give us a clap on that one. Yes. Now, with regard to the digital, I think Tony is probably will add on that, but I think comparatively in Africa, Kenya is very advanced. If you look at the statistics in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of the Global Innovation Index, which is a direct, comparatively, we are doing very well. In fact, I think we should not be competing with the region. We should be competing beyond, making maximum use of it. And I think the fifth industrial revolution is more digital. It is AI. In fact, the fourth was digital. The fifth is now AI, which has a lot of digital aspects. It will drive literally everything, yes, where you can order your food in Nyamachoma in Kariako, and it's flown by a drone, and it lands on the table. So life is going to change. There are going to be many obsolete jobs. My age mates are going to visit our grandchildren. This is your space. Try science, technology, innovation. The youth will never go wrong. Thank you. But avoid politics.
We think that the innovators, they are the ones that dress like you. You know, you are in the office, you know, you have a tie. Those are the innovators. But I'm looking at beyond the youth. We always talk about the Mama Mboga and the like. Who is an innovator in the Kenya space?
Thanks very much. Professor Oyama, first of all, said, as I respond to that, to say that we're doing very well in terms of technology and digitization. You know, because I run the National Innovation Agency, I have a slightly different measure, and I think we have quite some ground to cover, especially when we think that we want to compete globally. I think, at National Global Innovation Index, somewhere around number 87, and when I look at the key elements that we measure, I think we have a lot of ground to cover. In terms of uptake of web and mobile technologies and general infrastructure, I think by and large we're doing okay relative to our neighbors maybe, but in terms of sophistication of technology that then will make things cheaper, faster, more convenient and so on and so forth, we have a lot of ground to cover. And then there are many mechanisms that we can use for moving forward, and we are happy to engage at one-on-one level. Who is an innovator? When I defined my simple definition of innovation, which is change that adds value, I had nothing to do with age there. I had nothing to do with gender. I had nothing to do with level of sophistication. It's anyone who can identify a challenge and then visualize how the situation could be better, either be faster, more convenient, more accessible, and so on and so forth, and then create the solution that then can address that issue. So anyone does have an opportunity for innovation. Frugal innovation is, for example, for the people like the Mamambogas and the Juakalis and so on and so forth. However sophisticated we can be in terms of level of education or not, we have an opportunity to make a change that will add value. Now, from a Kenya perspective, this is what I would say in the context of public sector. There are 3 elements that we're beginning to introduce now that can support public sector to make everyone an innovator. 1, we've designed what we call Kenya Innovation Academy. And we want to grow this over the years, which is going to be a vehicle that provides capacity building for people to demystify this concept called innovation, all right? And we've already run a couple of courses. One of them that today I decided as I was sitting through here is thinking through user-centeredness for innovations in public sector. I think that's a course that almost everyone in public sector should attend. Second one is enhancing productivity using innovation in public sector. I think it's something that everyone should attend. So as we get into the new financial year, we'll be announcing some of these courses and we'll invite people to participate. So that's 1, capacity building. The second dimension that I think Kenya is going to support a lot is how do we help institutions to do the following things? 1, develop a roadmap for innovativeness. As an institution, where do we want to go over the next 5 years? Then that means the head of institutions and the board are able to champion that, allocate resources and capacity build and so forth. We can help you to build a roadmap of where you may want to be in 10 years down the road. Second is that we can help you to think and design solutions that are more user-centered. We can give you that input. Third is that we can help you measure the effectiveness of the innovation initiatives that you have, all right? I've seen a number of the agencies set up innovation department. You know, KRA, for example, called me and said, oh, we've set up an innovation department. The question to me would be, how effective will that be, and how can we help you to make it more effective? Fourth, along the same element of supporting institutions is, how could we make your institution more innovative? Can I measure how we organize ourselves to be more innovative as an institution? And we can give you a score and actually say, you're probably tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. If everyone now thrives to move to tier 1, then at a national level, we're beginning to do well. So that's the second pillar. The first pillar was around capacity building. The second is more about institutional support. And I think the third one is around spotlighting the successful efforts. Because unless we celebrate people and institutions and departments about the innovative efforts that they have, then we deny ourselves to the glory that comes with it. So Kenya can support you a lot in spotlighting. It can support you a lot in amplifying. We can support even in seeking additional resources to scale the various innovations that we have. Okay, thanks. So anyone is an innovator.
I see that we can all be innovators, and thanks very much for that. It's just that we have to use the space that you're actually providing so that we can be capacity built, and we can also have indicators, yeah, that can measure that. Going back to Ms. Wasike, yesterday I had a team of youth in my office, and we were discussing matters climate change. And one of the things we started asking ourselves is how many have looked at government policy? How many have looked at NDC, the National Determined Commitments? And they said, you know, madam, these documents are too big. They are so complex. How can we innovate better in terms of closing that divide, yeah? And educating them through policy documents that are easy for them to really catch their eye because I think that the youth want things very fast, but how do we make our documents really attractive to the youth?
Thank you so much again. Catching the eye of the youth and really working with them. Now, I would also say there is no easier way to make legislation look pretty, look simple, and all that. As young people, and this is the conversation we always have, young people, we must really get into that document and understand what that document does for us. And how to do this, I'll challenge the Ministry of Environment to actually send this information out as a challenge-driven solve problem approach. You would send out, you decide that probably for this month, we are having discussions on the climate action policy. And the way we are going to do this is in a challenge-driven solve problem approach. Look at the first elements of that policy document. There's this background, and actually put something there for youth. Does this background information capture the aspirations of youth? You will find them going to look into that document. And they come, and now you find out and ask, point out the aspirations of the youth within this document. They will do that. That way, they have gone through that document. The next week, send out the next challenge. Does the implementation capture the elements that you think should be captured? And that way they start engaging, and this is what we are doing. And young people want to be meaningfully engaged, to want to understand that document. But the way we simplify it for them and have them engage in them is actually show them that you're active contributors and your opinion matters in this process. And that is why a challenge-driven solve problem approach gives it a better mechanism. And I would like to also add on to what Dr. Tony has mentioned on the innovation centers within institutions. And this is what we are consistently driving. You remember there was the conversation that Kenya actually does papers for students abroad. In essence, Kenya is really wealthy with research and information that comes out of that to really come out with a product. What institutions can do, like for instance, KRA can say, we want to innovate around this, but we give it as a challenge. Come up and discuss the solution to this. And we found out that young people really come up with extremely brilliant ideas. I would like to give the example of the Fahari Innovation Center that was done by the youth, and this was through a challenge. And actually, Kenya Airways partnered with Boeing, and they delivered the Fahari Innovation Center at a cheaper rate. If they had gone through this process in the way they do the normal processes, it would have costed them over 10 million. They delivered this project at 2 million with upcycled material. You go to that center, and actually the CS said it looked like Google in Seattle. So you see that our young people can actually deliver this when we find them as valuable contributors throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In a short while, I'll come to us. If you have questions, you can ask. So that the debate is all inclusive. But before I come to the participants, let me ask Professor Oyawa, because you've made ST&I part of the performance management element. How does innovation in public service management enhance productivity of the employees?
Yes, thank you for that. And once more, allow me to thank the Ministry of Public Service for allowing that mainstreaming. And it goes back to the same thing that somehow services are wired nowadays to be delivered through technology. And it's almost like it's difficult to debate this simply because It has overtaken everything. If you go to places like Europe, you'll find the bank tellers are no longer there. That sends a very strong message. And the same will also happen in the public service, that certain jobs will become obsolete. I was just talking about in another forum about the area I belong. I'm a civil engineer teaching in construction. And now our good friends, the Chinese, are printing houses. So a room like this can be printed within a day. Printing. So the printer that you know in your desk, small printer, can be converted to a big printer like a crane, and within a day we print this house. That makes what I was taught and I'm teaching my students obsolete. So it's almost like in the public service, of course there's still a transition going on, but we would be overtaken by events. And there's nothing as bad as being overtaken by events. We saw it in the Postal Corporation many years ago, for those who are older. It was an agency, people were proud to work for the Postal Services Corporation. When the digital thing was coming, they never took it seriously. You know the story. This is what is happening now, that we have to convert, and what it will require for the PSC, there's a need for a conversion of a good number of workers to do the things of the times. Because I've been trained in a certain way, you have been trained in a certain way, the digital elements come and take up that work. It doesn't mean you become obsolete. They need just to retrain you to occupy the space that is going. But I would imagine Kenya, as I said, is at the forefront, and that came to the public service, like the Huduma centers and so forth, is digital. So comparatively, we are way ahead, and we need to applaud ourselves on that. Now we need to connect to the rest of the world.